everybody. It's Artist Ambassador Heather Pastor coming to you live today from my home studio, or otherwise known as the second bedroom in my house. I think I might just be, nope, it's 1 o'clock now. So I am going to be walking you through the process of creating a little tree of gratitude. So in preparation for, I guess, for Thanksgiving, which is coming up this week on Thursday, I thought it'd be kind of nice to create a 3D version, but you could do a 2D version as well. A three-dimensional version of a little tree of gratitude that you could use. I mean, this can be done as a family, as a really nice project to complete as a family, and then use it, maybe put it on display somewhere in your house, or even use it as part of your centerpiece maybe for your holiday gathering. I know not all of us are able to gather in large groups right now, but even if it's you and a significant other, or maybe just a couple of family members, hopefully you're getting together with somebody, or at least sharing a meal with your dog, like I would be if I didn't live pretty close to my family. So anyway, so we're gonna start by creating, actually uploaded a template that you could use to create the tree shape. So if you're uncomfortable about drawing your own tree, you might want to take a look. I think Catherine said that she had shared it on either the event or on the Atlantic Center for the Arts Facebook page. So check for that. You can also just like Google black and white clip art. I think I put in like tree trunk. So if you're looking for something to use as kind of a, like not a diagram, but something to use for your shape, you can definitely hand draw it if you want. Or like I said, or you could try to kind of create or print out this template and use that. So I'll probably just be using the tree that I created for the sample. I'll just probably kind of go off of that. But I want to go over some of the things that you're going to need for the class and make sure you have them all in front of you, so you don't have to get up and wander while we're in the middle of putting everything together. But I wanted to again introduce myself in case any of you missed it a couple minutes ago when I came on board, or came online I should say. It's Heather Pastor. I'm coming to you live from my home studio today, and I am an artist ambassador for the Atlantic Center for the Arts. We're creating our little tree of gratitude. And like I was just telling everybody, you can do either a three-dimensional or a two-dimensional version of this if you don't have all the supplies, and I'll kind of tell you a little bit more about that as we go on. But what you want to try to find, if possible, is, where this is going to be in the best spot. Maybe, I always check my recycle bin for cardboard. I really like a cereal box, I think, is what I did this out of. If you want to make sure it's a pretty thin kind of cardboard. If you get the really thick one with like the corrugated, I don't know if you can see that or not, it's kind of corrugated thickness. It's a little hard to kind of navigate with scissors. It'll be really nice and sturdy when you get to the point where you're putting this all together, but it's usable for sure. It's not ideal, but if you have something like this, that would work out okay. Something else that I thought of was like a manila, not an envelope, what is this? Manila folder. You could use something like this. Again, it's a little bit lightweight for what we're going to be doing. Probably like, this is kind of the thickness, maybe a little thicker than a cardstock, which you could also use if you don't have a piece of cardboard that'll work, but that's an option. So some kind of a folder, or a cardstock, or even if you wanted this corrugated cardboard will work okay. but ideally we want something more that's a little bit more, something in between these two thicknesses and sturdiness. So this one happens to be white on one side and brown on the other. If you have something like a cereal box, obviously is going to have some kind of printing on one side and then would be brown on the other. I happen to find, and again, I don't remember exactly where I got the cardboard I used for the sample, but I'm going to show you a couple of different techniques on how you can cover if you do have writing or something on one side, you can cover it in a couple of different ways so that it appears brown, like a tree trunk. You don't even have to do it in brown. I mean, honestly, you could do a very colorful, I've thought about doing another version of this maybe with like kind of a rainbow trunk. I've seen some images on Facebook or something like that where it had, I think there's actually a tree out there in the world somewhere that has like a very vibrantly colored bark on it. So use your imagination. You could do whatever you want. I always get stuck in those ruts where I'm trying to do things like, you know, a tree trunk is brown. So let's go over some of the other supplies. So you're going to need to find yourself a piece of tag board, cardboard, a lightweight cardboard, preferably something that's about the thickness of a cereal box. That's that. Definitely need your number 2 pencil. You're going to want a glue stick of some kind. If you have liquid glue, it might get a little messy. These are nice for this project, a nice glue stick. You're going to need a pair of scissors. You don't necessarily have to have, let's go through this though, an ink pen. So definitely want to have that, or maybe like a really fine point, like a fine point, very fine point Sharpie, or like this one's one of those micron, very fine tipped marker, like a art marker. Those are nice too. I also have a fine point Sharpie, which is one of my favorite tools, and a really thick Sharpie, but I don't know if I'm gonna really use this one. I would say if you have a permanent marker of some kind, that would be good, but it's not, depending upon your style, your taste, and how you want to do this, you might not even need the Sharpie. But you definitely will need the scissors, glue stick, pencil, and some kind of a finer point writing utensil, like an ink pen or a very fine point permanent marker. And then you're going to want to use, I think magazines on there as part of your supply list. So they can be used for a couple of different things. If you have like a scrapbook paper, I like the scrapbook paper I have because it's the cheapy kind and it's got white on one side and then it's got like the pattern on the other. So, and I have a variety of those. This is actually what I created the leaves from for the little tree of gratitude that I created in the sample that I had a photo of online. This is my favorite, but you can also use any number of different construction papers too. So I have some solid color construction papers, and I'm trying to bring a little fall into Florida because we're still experiencing some really humid and hot weather here. I even, put a sweater on today, hoping that I could channel some cooler weather. But so I'm thinking fall, even though it doesn't feel like fall here. But anyway, so you can use, again, any color construction paper if you have green or blue, or it really isn't about, the material so much as the message that we're going to convey in our little tree of gratitude. So let's start by going ahead and creating the tree itself. So, and this might take you a little time. If you have a piece, I think this is like an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardboard, you want to divide it, whatever size cardboard you have, even if you have to kind of slightly bend it, you want to try to create like 2 halves. So divide it, no matter what size it is, just divide it in 2. This one's a little smaller than the pieces that I used for my original little tree. So, and I'm just going to, you can either use that template and if you know how to do all this stuff, like resize it. Otherwise, you could just look at it as some kind of a reference as to how to draw a tree. I usually keep it really simple, remembering that whatever branches that you draw, you also have to cut out. So you want to keep them a pretty decent thickness. And I always do everything in pencil first. That way you can erase it if you don't like it. And then I'll go over it in permanent marker so you guys can see it. But I'm going to kind of just eyeball the halfway mark on my cardboard. And I'm going to draw a little tree. So really it's a rectangle for the trunk. And you're going to want to leave the bottom, and I'll show you here in a second. You're going to want to leave the bottom of your tree flat so that you can use it as a stand for your, so it'll stand straight or relatively straight when we put it together. So make sure you leave this part nice and flat when you're drawing out your little tree of gratitude. I don't know. I always have to try to figure this out like kind of backwards. So make sure this is good and flat when you, and I like to use just the bottom edge as the flat. It's probably the flattest you're going to get. Most of the time if you're cutting something, it's going to end up a little bit wonky, a little bit off and not quite level. But usually when they put these through some mechanical cutting device, they're going to be pretty nice and clean. So, so leave that. And then again, I'm going to draw this out. You want I think this one you want to have the center of it go up. Again, hopefully you can see this pretty well. You want this to cut off, like I took this all the way up to the top of the cardboard when I cut it, when I created the shape for this tree before. So you want it to be straight through the center, and because we're going to have to cut it to put the two pieces together here in a minute. So make sure you have one branch that goes straight up through the trunk and goes straight up to the top of your page. So even if it gets a little bit more tapered as you go up, you need to have something, and I would say leave it probably at least like a ½ inch to an inch wide. Because again, you're going to have to, you can always go back and kind of cut it and change it, but let me draw this on here for you, and then I will, and again, you're not going to, you're not going to see a lot of this once you get all the leaves on, so don't get too wrapped up in how this tree trunk and everything looks. You want to try to keep it as straight as possible, but I usually take a couple goes at this before I get one that I really like. So I'm just going to sketch this out and then do it in marker so you can see it, what I've done. And I usually try to stagger like the branches so it's not like all one, so it doesn't look like everything's coming off at the same spot. Okay. And again, remember, you don't want to do a whole lot of like really spindly, tiny little branches because you don't want to have to cut all that out. The idea is to basically just give yourself enough of a structure to be able to attach our leaves to it. So let me draw this out. And then again, I usually make adjustments also as I'm cutting it out. So draw yourself a little tree, just a couple of branches. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. Okay. So here's what I created. Hopefully you can see that. I got my weird lighting here today. So this is how I created the tree. You want to keep, you got to keep the bottom of this flat. So use that flat edge of the cardboard. And then I might, when I go to cut this out, I might add another little branch to it. But you get the idea. So you have a nice straight column through the center, and then you have a couple of branches that go off. Usually you should use like odd numbers. I don't know if I did it on this one. Yeah, I did the same thing on this one. I did 4 branches, and then this, and then the center part of the trunk here. So you want to do something like this, and then I left the other half because we're going to need 2 of these cut out of the cardboard. So draw yourself a nice little tree trunk, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. And what we're going to do is, after we cut this out, we're going to lay this down on the other side of the cardboard so that we can have 2 tree trunks that are exactly the same height. They're the exact same width or close to it. The height is kind of important, so. And I didn't stagger mine very well either. Like, I brought them all up kind of the same way. I always keep these little pieces. You never know what other kind of art projects you can possibly make with them, so. And you could just leave yours. You don't have to Sharpie yours. I just did that so you could see better. And I'm gonna use my other tree because I had 2 more sides on it that I never finished that I'm gonna use for this class today. So if you have any questions as we're going along and they're not necessarily project related, I would encourage you to ask them in the feed below. Catherine's going to try to answer as much as she can. She's on from Atlantic Center for the Arts with me today, and she'll do what she can. And then if there's something like afterward that you want to share with me, I'll get on and respond to anything, but it might be a little late by then if it's project related. So I apologize because I'm video taping on an iPad, and I'm a little bit of a distance away from it, so I can't really be doing the project and responding to questions at the same time. So hopefully I'm covering all of it. You're gonna just leave these flat too. I don't know if you can see. I'm just leaving these flat. At some point, if you wanted to, you could, I still can't figure out which side to put this on, sorry. You can shape these up, kind of point them, get them a little more pointed, or, taper them a little bit. So that's what I mean when I go through and I cut this all out. I make some adjustments as I move along. So even though I've sketched it on there, you don't have to necessarily cut it out exactly as you drew it on. If you decide to make some changes, you can always do that mid-cut. Okay. And I will, I don't want it to look real. So here's the little tree, and I'll put it against this so you can kind of see it. That should work better. So here's the little tree that I just cut out, and it appears in white on the screen that you're looking at. And I put it on the brown side of this cardboard. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up now that it's all cut out, and I'm going to go ahead and trace, and I would use pencil again. I'm going to trace this out, and I'm going to cut a second one. So you should have 2 cardboard trees when it's all said and done. And then you can go back through and, make these little adjustments. Like I said, I'm going to kind of round my my limbs off a little bit so they don't look so stark. I just feel like it looks a little more organic to have it kind of. So one side, whoops. Yeah. One side I already did. I did on this side, I just kind of rounded off the points over here. And then this side still, I haven't done that to it yet. So you get the idea. Just make sure this is lined up at the bottom. That's an important fact, and that you have a nice flat bottom for when we put these 2 together. So go ahead and trace this onto another piece. of cardboard. And that way you'll have two pretty well identical little trees, little cardboard trees. And while you're doing this, you can start to think about all the things that you are grateful for. So I know some days I have a hard time being positive. And this actually, I will tell you, like, it's such a nice exercise. It's something, I know people who journal on a daily basis, and they actually, and I've heard of people also, you know, starting their day by writing down 10 things they're grateful for, or ending their day the same way. And I can see where that would be a really good exercise to start just a daily exercise, because again, it's easy some days to forget how many things we have in our worlds to be grateful for. So I have to tell you, as I was doing the sample project, it really does change your whole, I don't know how it works exactly from a scientific standpoint, but it really does change your brain chemistry as you're writing down things that you're happy about, things that bring you joy, people, places, things that you're grateful for in your life. Just the idea, just the act of thinking about those things and then writing them. There's something about that really does improve your psyche. It improves your mood. So, and I think this would be an awesome project to, like, I'm going to go down and have a dinner with my family this weekend, or next weekend, excuse me. And it would be a great project to do. I thought about maybe like giving each person a different color of leaf, like a different color of construction paper, or using a different colored ink, something like that, where it could be very personal to each person involved, but then also create this really lovely communal kind of project that if you did it as a family, like even now, if you have some of your family members close by and you're doing that with them, it's a nice exercise. And then you can talk about it. And again, it just kind of continues to, just like the little tree grows, it continues to create that environment where the positivity grows and your gratefulness grows, and all of those things can only have a positive effect on your life as a whole. So, not to get all philosophical on you, but it really, there's something to that. So, okay, I am going to actually set this aside. So you've got your two identical trees cut out of cardboard. And I'm going to use the ones that I created previously, because I didn't do, you're going to end up with a total of 4 sides that need to be covered. So you have this one. So you have 1 and 2 that you just cut out of cardboard, and then you have the other side of them. So if they're not brown already, you want to probably do something to make them brown, or make them whatever color you want to use for your project. Like this brown is fine. Like I used it for mine. It's just the way that it was, that it came. And that was okay. But I used, I don't know if you can see very well. I keep getting out of the light here. I used like torn paper. My lighting is a little off today. I used torn brown and black and different, I had a bunch of different colors of brown, but I tore little pieces of construction paper and I glued them down to try to create, and you can probably see it better on the sample photo that is on this event. It just gives it a nice like textured look. So you could cover it that way if you want. Another thing that you could do would be to use, if you did have magazines that you didn't mind tearing into, you can usually find some really nice like colors and tones. Like I happen to have a magazine that has like cake and stuff in it. So like recipes, and these are some really nice browns. Again, sorry. these are some really nice brown tones. So I could go in here, and then here's like, I think some fried chicken or something on this page. So I've got like a bunch of different brown colors, or excuse me, shades of brown, tones of brown, that I could kind of tear these out. And I like them torn paper for this step because, again, it gives it a nice texture. And I wish this was a little closer so you could see. It might be better on your end. I know on my end it doesn't really do it justice. But anyway, tear some little pieces of brown paper. Using your glue stick, just glue those little pieces of paper down. I'm actually going to do the other side of this one with some magazine. So I'm going to start it. I don't know if I'll finish it because I want to make sure I get through the whole project with y'all. But I'm just going to tear into this. I'm going to tear out all these lovely brown tones. And then I'm going to, I just tear it into like some little strips. You could do whatever you want. It could be whatever size or shape that you want. And then I'm just going to glue them. So it kind of depends upon what mood you're in and what supplies you have on hand as to what you cover this. You could paint it as well. A lot of people don't have paints or access to paints, but you could most definitely paint your tree trunk. I would say acrylics would probably work best on this cardboard. If you want to get really fancy, you can think about the different, you know, like as you got down to the roots. I actually really like the way the torn magazines look, because it gives you the texture and it gives you this, just these lovely you know, differences in the differences in like all the different browns. You could get, so like I said, kind of fancy and, you know, do the darker tones toward the bottom where like the roots would be, and you could even like shade it with the magazine. The torn magazine pages, you could make it lighter as it got up, you know, higher toward the top of the tree. Oops. And the other thing I love about using the magazines is like you can, there's really no rhyme or reason to any of it. Like you can use whatever imagery you find. No one's gonna know what it was really. I mean, once you tear it all up, it all starts to kind of look keep losing my train of thought. For some reason lately, I can't talk and do things at the same time. I'm so easily distracted. Which makes it hard when you're trying to teach something and do it at the same time. So, sorry about that. Let's see. I would say like skin tones and stuff too would probably work pretty well for the tree trunk itself. You could even use like some green to mimic moss maybe. Here's some browns. So yeah, if you don't have paint, and even if you do, like I really like the collaging effect on this tree trunk with the with either like solid color construction papers or magazine photos. Okay. And I might need to do a few. I'm tearing them into like strips, but you could also use smaller little bits, especially if you want to cover up certain spaces or I don't know. Okay. So So if anyone is joining us, I'd love to see where everybody's from. I wish I could respond as you're putting anything on the feed, but I'd love to see where everybody's from if we have a lot of people from Florida. I think the last time I did one of these, I had some Canadians that were on. So, okay. So, again, that is the beginnings of my magazine collage for this side. So you have 4 sides to do. So this again is a great project for multiple people because everyone, well, not everyone, but probably depending upon the size of the group that you're working with, could each be doing, you know, I guess you can only work on 2 at a time, but somebody could be looking for magazine pictures and another person could be gluing some things on, and you could be kind of using it as a team activity if you wanted to. It's a great, like I said, I did the sample just sitting at my kitchen table. And it's just a good activity, whether you're creating something for yourself or creating something with other people. I'm trying to find some bigger brown swatches in here. I hope they never stop printing magazines, because I have to tell you, I use them in a lot of projects. And I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, gosh, you know, everything's going electronic, and these magazine pages make for some great collaging projects, and I'm like, I hope that they don't ever do away with them for good. Do away with the printed pages, because one of my favorites. Okay, so this step, like I said, is probably, it takes the longest, just making sure all of your branches are covered. If you want to go back, like I have a couple spots where I went over with my collage elements, and I'll have to come back through and like just trim it off a little bit at the bottom here with the pair of scissors. Just run it along the bottom here. You also want to make sure that there's nothing showing on the opposite side. Unless you do collage on both sides, then you don't have to really think about that at all. It won't matter so much. Okay. Let's see where I'm at on time here. Okay, so again, this takes a little bit of time, so I just want to make sure that I get through and at least get a chance to show you the different types. So I did the torn paper on one, I did the magazine torn in this one, and then I did the torn paper, different colors of brown, or different shades of brown construction paper on this one. And then this side's just the plain brown cardboard. On this side, I used the word gratitude, and I just like to incorporate some kind of typographic element in almost everything that I do artistically. So I took the word gratitude, and maybe, hopefully, there we go. You can read that. But I took the word gratitude and I wrote it starting at the base, and I wrote it kind of going all the way up the trunk. And then at the very top, I put the word grows on each one of the branches. So you can kind of see again, my lighting is weird today, sorry. At least you can kind of see. You could do something like that. You could do like a little bit more like script. Like this is very obvious when you look at it, that that's what it says. But it's not as obvious when you put the 3-dimensional twist on this. So if you're doing this, like, you could take this little tree. If you had a piece of cardboard, then you only had one piece of cardboard and you couldn't make the 3D version, You could always just draw or trace a tree onto a piece of paper. You don't have as many options as far as how to shape, you know, like how you could still collage it, you could still paint it, you could do all the same things. You would just have a little different, you wouldn't be able to set it up right on its own, independent, obviously, but you could still hang it up somewhere. And you could also add other typographic elements if you did something like that too. And all the rest of this you could still do on a two-dimensional surface, meaning a flat surface. So if you don't have or can't figure out how to put this all together, just know that that's also an option. And it's equally as fun and a nice sentiment for this time of year, or any time of year, like I said. We tend to think about these kinds of things during, you know, Thanksgiving, or around Thanksgiving, but we should be grateful and thinking about how grateful we are on a daily basis. Now, I'm not always there, so no judgment if you aren't doing that on a daily basis, because I don't always do it on a daily basis, but it really is nice. Okay, so once you have both sides covered in whatever medium you have decided, whether it's collage or paint or just simply writing some words, you could do that. Like I just had a black Sharpie, but you could do that with any, you know, any colors. You could use other, you know, like a brown marker, or you could do, if the rest of your, just remember this is going together, and will become a full piece. You'll be able to see everything you do on all sides. So if you do, you know, be consistent in how you do it. If you're going to choose to do everything in brown, like a tree trunk you would see out in nature, then be consistent in whatever you do. So, or you don't even have to. Like, that's just me and my type A personality, but I just think it makes for a better composition fully if you kind of pick a theme, whether you want to do rainbow or you want to do whatever. Maybe you do all of your typography. If you decided to do something like that, you could do it in all different colors. I did everything kind of in brown and shades of brown. Once you get both sides finished, what you're going to do is you're going to take your scissors and as close to straight. Now, I don't go to the trouble to like measure this, but what you're going to do is to make this three-dimensional and able to stand on its own, you're going to take your scissors and you're going to cut from the top down. And on this one, I think I went down more than halfway. So like where my finger is, and there we go. That's where I cut down from the top, and my top is right here. So it is it's a little more than halfway. I always say if you're gonna err on one side or the other, err on the side of not cutting far enough, because then you can always cut a little further. If you cut too far down, you're gonna have to figure out a way to stabilize it. So like you might have to put a piece of tape, or you might have to do additional collaging on top of it. But whatever you do, you're going to cut from the top down, so like down the top of your tree trunk, through the center, as close to the center as you possibly can get. So I'm going to take my scissors right through the center here and cut down like this, all the way down. Cut, cut, cut. I already did it on this one, so. And I'm going to come down to like about here on my little tree. Someday I'll get this right. Okay, so it's a little bit more than halfway. On the other tree, so this one I cut from the top down, sort of in the center, hopefully close to the center. And then on this tree, set that aside, on this tree, I'm cutting from the bottom up. So this one was from the top down, this one's going to be from the bottom up. So I'm going to take, again, through the center, as close to the center as I can get. I'm going to cut, cut, cut. And this one I'd say is probably a little bit closer to the center. So I cut to where you see my fingers here. And this is the top of my tree here. lighting, sorry. I'm dancing with my tree. Okay. All right, so here's where I cut to where my pointer finger is. And then here's the top of the tree. There we go. All right, so one tree we're cutting from the top down. The other tree we're cutting from the bottom up. Again, pretty close to halfway. And you might have to go back in and make some adjustments. And then what you're going to do is you're going to slide these two together. So where those two are slit, you're going to slide them in together. And they should go fairly easily depending upon how much you collage, like if your papers are really thick. Sometimes I have a little bit of trouble. Most of the time I don't. And paint, sometimes the paint with a thinner cardboard like this, sometimes it will, I don't want to say buckle, but you might get a little bit, like if you're painting, make sure that you don't leave it to dry long enough. Because it might like just kind of get a little slight ripple to it, which is no big deal. Just know that that might happen and don't panic. Okay. So once I slide these two together, and again, you'll have to tweak it a little bit. You might have to cut, a little bit further up on one or a little further down on the other, but just make sure you cut one from the bottom. This one's from the bottom. It almost looks like a couple of little feet, like my little tree's walking along. Boop, boop, boop. Okay. The other one is from the top. So this one's got like half and half. Okay. And then we're coming down to about halfway down on the tree trunk itself. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to stand it up and you just slide it together gently, depending upon how thick your cardboard is. If you have the thicker cardboard, it might not go together quite as easily. It might take a little bit more working with it. I have used the thicker cardboard for other projects, doing something similar to this. And really, you can use this technique for pretty much any shape. You have to keep it kind of simple, but I've used it for all kinds of stuff, and I really like it because it's simple enough. You're doing two of the exact same shape, and then just cutting one from the bottom and one from the top, and then you have a three-dimensional whatever. I mean, you could make ornaments that way. Like I've used little star shapes in the past. You can use a circle. It's fun. I've made little pumpkins that way, and with some of my kids' classes and things like that. So here's my tree, standing tall. And then the last part would be to cut yourself some leaves. So I'm going to leave this guy about there. And again, I'm sure most of you are probably still working on the tree trunk and getting all of the collaging or whatever done on it, which is fine. I just want to move through this so that I make sure I get all of the steps done for you or with you, and then you can always go back and make adjustments, because you can take this apart and put it back together as many times as you want. I've done it, I was going to actually, until I added the leaves, I was going to use that as my tracer. So, and even with the leaves, you could still trace if you wanted to do more than one tree. It'd be kind of cute to do like a whole, like if you had a table that you were setting this time of year, like you could do like a whole little forest. I mean, you could do several of these, and maybe each person gets to do their own little tree of gratitude, or I don't know. I mean, there's 1,000,001 different ways that these could be a really pretty little scene or setup, and then leave it up for the rest of the year. I mean, it's something, again, just to keep continuously reminding you of the things that you're grateful for. So here is a piece of that scrap paper, or excuse me, I just lost the word. What do they call that? Scrapbooking paper. Scrapbooking paper. I like this particular pad that I had. It has like a bunch of different patterns that are in oranges and some orange into green. anyway, so I like it. I like it for tree leaves. I just thought it was a good summer into fall kind of paper. But again, you can use any paper you have. And mine, again, happens to be white on one side and then patterned on the other. So depending upon the size of your tree, and everybody's is going to vary a little bit. Like the one that I just did with you this morning is it's not a lot littler, but you can see that it's smaller, shorter than the one that I did as the sample tree. So here's my other little shorty tree. So depending upon the size of your tree, like you don't probably want like a humongous leaf on a little tree. I mean, if you want to keep it kind of proportionate, you have to gauge a little bit on the size of the limbs of your tree, and then cut yourself. Now I was cutting kind of like an almond shape, so I'll try to show you what this looked like. And I didn't use anything fancy. I literally, and you could really, if you cut one and you like the shape of it, then you could use it as a tracer and cut the rest of them with that same shape. Again, I like consistency. Doesn't necessarily have to be. Maybe everybody, that is doing this, does different shape, but I cut kind of this shape. Let's see. Actually, against my teal sweater, it's a little easier to see it. Okay, so here it's kind of an almond shape. So it's kind of wide in the middle and tapers off on either side. Again, there's no real right or wrong to how to do these, but you're going to cut a lot of them. So you want to make sure that this shape is fairly simple. And like I just eyeball it, and if they're off by a little bit, you're not going to be able to tell. So I'm going to cut a few of these. And then I sort of folded them. You don't have to. I just thought it looked a little prettier. Like, again, just gave it another dimension. But I kind of tried to just roll them a little bit. And because they're not completely even on both sides, like if you decided that you wanted to fold it, it might not be exactly, like you're still going to see like little bits and pieces of whatever's on the other side or on it. So I felt kind of like a taco, like I folded it like a taco. And then I took my ballpoint pen or your thin, like very fine point, permanent marker or something, and wrote what I was thankful for. So, and I mean, you can get kind of wordy. I mean, it's just more about it's more about putting something on paper. If it's completely legible, that doesn't really matter, because it's not like someone's going to come through and like read every single one like it's a fortune cookie or something. So I'm going to say, so I wrote the roof over my head, because those are those simple things that you take for granted, like the fact that you have food in your belly and that you're able to get online and see something like this, and the fact that you have shelter, because we get a lot of rain down here and it's starting to get really cold in other places in the country. So just those very basic needs. Not everybody, again, has those things. So even when everything else seems like it's falling apart, you always have those simple needs met, hopefully. Okay, so I just took my little taco shape and I put a little bit of glue stick on just the one side, and then I pinched it onto one of the branches. And the more things that you're grateful for, and the more that you create leaves that have those items written on there, the more full your tree becomes. So I have, you know, a safe place to live. I had, of course, my little Rolo dog. He's my new pup. And my family, my mom and dad. I have a little brother, and he has a family. So all of these people, my friends, my amazing friends that have been there for me through thick and thin. I'm also thankful for things like certain food items because they bring me such happiness. So if you've ever taken classes with me, you'll I ordinarily use food as in some way, shape, or form as a reference at some point during the class because I'm constantly thinking about food. Laughter, just having a body that can carry me from point A to point B on a daily basis. Laughter. What else? My students love to have people to be able to teach, and I love to be able to be a student. I like to learn things from other people, so I'm thankful that I can do both. Like I said, my ability to communicate. I have a friend right now who's in the hospital and is not able to speak, and like just being able to communicate, whether you're happy or sad, or you know, if you lose your voice or you lose your mobility or any number of things. You know, again, we take all these things for granted until they're not there, until they're gone. So I'm going to get a little, getting a little sentimental. Anyway, so this is what happens. This is what happens when you start listing all of those things and those people, and you start thinking about all these things, and then you well up with all this, you know, gratitude, and you well up with, usually, like me, a little bit of emotion about how you do take those things for granted on a daily basis. Again, I'm ashamed to say, but I know that I do. So anyway, whew. Okay, so thank you all for being here. I'm very grateful for you. This is the entire project. And then as you go along, like I said, you can cut as many of these as you want. Trust me, you'll need a lot of them because I'm sure that all of you have plenty of things to be grateful for. And as you're writing them out, you might find that you get a little teary-eyed, or it might, hopefully it has the effect that it causes you to reach out to the people that are important to you and tell them that they're important to you. And be grateful for them, not only today while you're doing a little tree of gratitude, but on a more consistent basis. Because, like I said, I mean, like I have friends that I don't see all the time, but that are constantly on my mind. And I don't necessarily reach out as often as I should or would like to. And making the time for those things is important. So, funny things like I put electricity on my gratitude tree. I mean, you think about all of the things, and when we have a hurricane down here and we lose our power, you don't realize how thankful you are for air conditioning until you don't have air conditioning and it's 95 degrees outside. Or if you live in a cold weather climate, I'm sure you probably lost power during storms. Those kinds of things, like, again, it really causes you to dig deep. Some of these things are very surface, and then other things are not things you think about every day. Your health, like the fact that you can, you know, use a pair of scissors and cut out a little leaf to put on your tree. Anyway, it's just a good practice. It's a nice way to remember not only this time of year, but all the time. Let's see. So let me see. I don't know how we're doing on time. Wow, I'm getting better at this time thing, I guess. So again, if you haven't already, just make sure that when you get ready when you've finished both sides of your tree and doing whatever collaging technique or paint or whatever, once you've done that, make sure you cut from the top on one and from the bottom on the other. I'd say about halfway, and then when you go to put them together, just if they don't fit just right, give a little snip either up or down, and until you get them to fit flush. So And it doesn't, like I said, it shouldn't take too much finagling, especially if you use the bottom edge and it's already flat. That's helpful. Sometimes, as much as I want to attain perfection, one other thing I was thinking might be kind of cool is, I don't know if anybody has ever heard, I have it actually up on my wall, cardinals appear when angels are near. I don't know if you've ever heard that quote. It was one of the more popular ones when I was doing wood sign painting classes, and it's one that's very near and dear to my heart. I thought it might be kind of cool, and I actually saw a cardinal this morning, which is also a reason why I'm a little bit feeling a little sentimental today. And I just thought the timing was very not ironic, but it would be kind of cute, like to maybe put like a little simple bird shape. And I was thinking too, like on our I celebrate Christmas, and on our Christmas tree we have like a little bird that we little bird's nest that we always put in the Christmas tree. So you might want to, like, you know, if there's something special that might fit in the nature theme, another shape, or you know, maybe you remember some of the people that aren't able to be with you for the holidays by adding like some cute little bird, or, you know, something to represent the spirit that is there with you during the holidays and always. So that was just another little idea that I came up with this morning that is not included on my little tree of gratitude, but I'm going to add. So hopefully I've explained everything well enough that you're able to complete these. I'd love to see your completed trees of gratitude. If you, I can't remember if you're able to upload them to the Atlantic Center for the Arts Facebook page. I think you could do it on the events page, on the event page for this particular event. I'm pretty sure people sent them to me that way. If you have troubles with that, you can always email them to me if you don't want a lot of people to see them. I'm at hp@heatherpastor.com. I would love to see them. So, and remember, just pick a simple shape for your leaf. It just needs to be big enough to be able to write in it the things that you're grateful for. And then just a little dab of glue stick, and I pinch it, and I usually will hold it on the limb for a little bit just to make sure it stays. I had to re-glue a couple of them on this one. But anyway, and then fill it up. Like this one, I know I have more to add to it. So I hope you enjoyed this little Tree of Gratitude workshop. I believe that it was sponsored by Advent Health in New Smyrna Beach, and of course the Atlantic Center for the Arts, and we're very grateful I'm very grateful for being able to do something I love, and having people in the community that support that and sponsor these kinds of workshops. So I hope you enjoyed it. It will live, this little video, though we're live today, will live on the Atlantic Center for the Arts Facebook page. So if you want to check back, or if you had a friend you want to forward it to, we'd love to make sure that lots and lots of people see it. So you have a wonderful day. Remember all the things you're grateful for today and every day, and I'm going to do my best to do that as well. And I've got to stand up to walk over to turn off this video, but I hope you have a wonderful holiday season, and I look forward to seeing you all in the new year. Thanks. Have a great day. Bye.